The look on Patricia's face when the FBI agents walked into her corner office was worth every sleepless night I had spent planning her downfall. 21 years of loyalty, and she'd thrown me away like yesterday's coffee grounds. But she forgot something really important. I had been there long enough to know where all the bodies were buried. My name is Eleanor Vance, and at 53 years old, I had just become the most dangerous, unemployed person in Chicago. Before we go any further, welcome back to Revenge Stories with Kyle, and if this is your first time watching any of our videos, we encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it motivates us to continue creating even more powerful stories for you. So stick with us to the very end, and if this story moves you, drop your comments and share with a friend. Now, let's dive back in. For 21 years, I'd been the senior financial compliance officer at Meridian Holdings, a mid-tier investment firm that prided itself on integrity and innovation. What they didn't pride themselves on was treating their most loyal employees with basic human decency. I lived by a simple philosophy. Information is the ultimate currency, and patience is the vault that keeps it safe. While my colleagues rushed to impress with flashy presentations and loud declarations, I collected data, built relationships, and remembered everything. Every conversation, every inconsistency, every late-night phone call they thought no one heard. In 21 years, you learn where all the bodies are buried, especially when you're the one holding the shovel. My cramped office on the 15th floor overlooked the lake, and I'd spent more hours staring at those gray waters than I had at my own kitchen table. My ex-husband used to say I loved that job more than I loved him, and maybe he was right. After our divorce 8 years ago, Meridian became my family. I mentored the young analysts, covered for colleagues during family emergencies, and worked weekends without complaint. I'd sacrificed my social life, my health, and probably 10 years of my life to make other people rich. But here's what I'd gained in return. I knew every system, every process, every dirty little secret that kept the money flowing. I'd built the compliance framework from the ground up, created the risk assessment protocols that had saved the company millions, and personally handled the audit preparations that kept the SEC from asking uncomfortable questions. I was indispensable, or so I thought. The betrayal came on a Tuesday morning in March, disguised as a routine meeting. "Eleanor, could you step into conference room B for a moment?" My boss, Patricia Hawthorne, appeared in my doorway with that practiced smile she used for difficult conversations. Patricia was 10 years younger than me, with perfect blonde highlights and the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. She'd been promoted to VP 2 years ago, largely based on systems I'd created and processes I'd streamlined. I gathered my coffee and notepad, assuming it was another fire drill from the board. Instead, I found Patricia sitting across from Jennifer Walsh from HR, and a man I didn't recognize wearing an expensive suit that screamed corporate attorney. "Please sit down," Patricia said, not meeting my eyes. "This is David Coleman from our legal department." The air in the room suddenly felt thick. I set down my coffee with steady hands, though my pulse was quickening. Patricia continued, "Eleanor, we've made the difficult decision to restructure the compliance department. Your position is being eliminated effective immediately." The words hit me like physical blows. Eliminated? Patricia, I built this department. I am this department. Jennifer Walsh cleared her throat. "We understand this is unexpected, Eleanor, but the company is moving in a new direction. We're outsourcing compliance to a third-party firm that can provide more comprehensive services." I looked at Patricia, searching her face for any sign of the colleague who used to ask my advice on everything from audit procedures to divorce lawyers. 21 years. I've given this company 21 years of my life. "And we're grateful," Patricia said, finally meeting my eyes. "Your severance package reflects that. 6 months' salary, extended health benefits, and a glowing reference letter." David Coleman slid a thick folder across the table. we'll need you to sign these documents today. Non-disclosure agreements, non-compete clauses, the standard separation paperwork. I stared at the folder without touching it. 6 months? For 21 years? It's quite generous, actually, especially given the current economic climate. That's when it clicked. I wasn't being fired because of budget cuts or restructuring. I was being eliminated because I knew too much. Patricia had been making moves behind the scenes, and my presence was inconvenient, even dangerous. I see. I picked up the folder, feeling its weight. Well, Patricia, I hope this new direction works out for you. As I walked to the door, I heard her say, Eleanor, this doesn't have to be adversarial. You've been a valued employee. Let's keep it that way. I turned back and smiled. The same professional smile I'd perfected over 2 decades. Of course, after all, we're all professionals here. But as Marcus, the security guard, walked me to my office, I was already calculating. Patricia thinks she's won, but she has no idea. Hit that subscribe button now for more shocking revenge stories where the underdog gets the ultimate payback. Turn on that notification bell because these workplace betrayals are about to get brutal. You see, there was something Patricia didn't know about me, something no one at Meridian knew. 6 months ago, I had started building my exit strategy, not because I wanted to leave, but because I'd learned to read the writing on the wall. The late-night meetings I wasn't invited to, the budget discussions that suddenly stopped when I entered rooms, the way Patricia had started asking detailed questions about my processes and procedures. I'd been systematically documenting everything, not just the routine compliance violations that every firm swept under the rug, but the real problems. The creative accounting that made quarterly numbers look better than they were. The client relationships that walked the line between aggressive sales tactics and outright fraud. The audit findings that had been buried rather than addressed. But my real insurance policy was something much more valuable. I knew about Project Clearwater. 3 months ago, I'd been working late, as usual, when I heard voices in the conference room. Patricia was on a call with someone from Clearwater Capital, discussing what sounded like a merger or acquisition. The numbers they were throwing around were massive. Hundreds of millions in potential fees for Meridian if they could facilitate the deal. The problem was, Clearwater Capital was one of our audit clients. Under SEC regulations, investment advisory firms can't participate in transactions with their audit clients. It's a textbook conflict of interest that could result in massive fines and criminal charges. I'd started documenting everything: email timestamps, meeting schedules, financial transfers that didn't quite add up. I'd even copied key files to a secure external drive, telling myself it was just good compliance practice to maintain backup records. Now, sitting in my empty office with Marcus hovering by the door, I realized Patricia hadn't just fired me, she'd freed me. "Take your time, Miss Vance," Marcus said awkwardly. "I know this must be difficult." I looked up at him while I packed my personal photos into a cardboard box. Marcus had been working security at Meridian for 15 years. He had 2 kids, a mortgage, and a daughter starting college in the fall. Like most of the support staff, he was hardworking, honest, and completely dependent on his Meridian paycheck. "Marcus," I said casually, "you might want to update your resume. Just a friendly suggestion." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "Nothing specific, but in my experience, when companies start making sudden changes to senior staff, other changes usually follow." I taped up the box and stood. "Take care of yourself." The next morning, I sat in my home office, a spare bedroom I'd barely used because I was always at Meridian, and laid out my strategy like a chess master planning an endgame. Patricia thought she'd neutralized me with the non-disclosure agreement, but she'd made a crucial error. The NDA covered proprietary information and trade secrets, not regulatory violations or criminal activity. In fact, as a compliance officer, I had a professional obligation to report potential securities violations to the appropriate authorities. My first call was to Rebecca Torres, an investigative journalist at the Chicago Tribune who'd been digging into financial sector corruption for years. I'd met her at a conference 2 years ago and had always respected her thorough, methodical approach to research. Rebecca, this is Eleanor Vance. I think I have a story you'd be interested in. We met at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, far from the financial district. I brought copies of documents, carefully selected to show the scope of the Clearwater situation without violating any legitimate confidentiality agreements. Rebecca studied the papers with sharp eyes. This is significant, Eleanor. If you're right about the timeline, they've been planning this transaction for months while actively auditing Clearwater's books. That's just the beginning, I said. The merger talks involve creating shell companies to hide the conflict of interest. They're not just bending the rules, they're breaking them. What do you want out of this? I sipped my coffee, thinking about Patricia's smug smile as security escorted me out. I want the truth to come out, I want accountability, and I want everyone to know that you can't destroy people's lives without consequences. Rebecca nodded. I'll need to verify everything independently. This could take weeks. I have time, I said. 21 years worth of time. While Rebecca started her investigation, I made my second call to James Morrison at the Securities and Exchange Commission. James and I had worked together on several compliance issues over the years, and he knew I didn't make frivolous accusations. Eleanor, I heard what happened at Meridian. Patricia Hawthorne called personally to inform us about the compliance restructuring. I bet she did. James, I need to file a whistleblower complaint. There was a pause. That's significant. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The FBI? A whistleblower complaint? Patricia doesn't even know the game has started. Smash that like button if you love watching bullies get what they deserve, and drop a comment. What's the most savage workplace revenge you've ever heard of? This story is about to get insane. The SEC investigation moved faster than I'd expected. Within 2 weeks, they'd requested documents that Patricia thought were safely buried. Within a month, they were interviewing current and former Meridian employees. The whistleblower protection laws meant Patricia couldn't retaliate against me directly, but I knew she was scrambling to contain the damage. That's when she made her second mistake. She tried to discredit me. Patricia started spreading rumors that I'd been difficult in my final months, that my work had been slipping, that the decision to eliminate my position had been performance-based. She apparently forgot that I'd spent 21 years building relationships throughout the industry. Former colleagues started calling me, asking what was really going on. I told them the truth, that I'd discovered potential securities violations and had reported them to the appropriate authorities. Word spread through the Chicago financial community like wildfire. But Patricia's biggest mistake was trying to intimidate Marcus. 2 months after my termination, Marcus called me at home. Miss Vance, I think you should know. Miss Hawthorne asked me to sign a statement saying you'd been acting strangely before you left. Said you might have taken confidential documents. What did you tell her? I told her I never saw you do anything wrong, but she's putting pressure on me, threatening my job if I don't cooperate with the company's legal strategy. That's when I knew Patricia was panicking, and panic makes people careless. I called Rebecca Torres. I think you should know that Patricia Hawthorne is now trying to intimidate potential witnesses. That's a federal crime if she's interfering with an SEC investigation, Rebecca said. I think it's time to go to print. The article ran on a Thursday morning with the headline, Investment Firm Faces Federal Investigation Over Alleged Securities Violations. Rebecca had done excellent work connecting the Clearwater conflict to a pattern of regulatory shortcuts that went back years. But the real bombshell came in the second paragraph. The investigation was triggered by a whistleblower complaint from Eleanor Vance, a former compliance officer who was terminated after 21 years with the company just days before the alleged violations came to light. The woman she fired is now front page news, destroying her entire company. Smash that like button and subscribe now if you're living for this karma. And tell us in the comments, have you ever gotten the perfect revenge? This story is about to get insane. My phone started ringing before I'd finished reading the article. Other journalists wanting to interview me, former colleagues expressing support. And then at exactly 9:47 a.m., a call from Patricia herself. Eleanor, we need to talk. I think we said everything that needed to be said in conference room B. This is destructive behavior, Eleanor. You're hurting innocent people, the employees, the clients. The employees deserve to know if their company is breaking federal law. The clients deserve to know if their advisors are putting personal profit ahead of fiduciary duty. The SEC investigation will find nothing because there's nothing to find. You're chasing shadows. I almost laughed. Patricia, I spent 21 years making sure this company followed regulations. I know the difference between shadows and substance. What do you want? Money? A better severance package? A reference that will help you find another position? Now, I did laugh. I want justice. I want accountability, and I want you to understand that actions have consequences. The line went quiet for a long moment. Then Patricia said, "You have no idea what you've set in motion." Actually, I know exactly what I've set in motion. The question is whether you do. The investigation moved into high gear after the Tribune article. The SEC brought in additional investigators, and the FBI opened a parallel criminal inquiry. Meridian's stock price started dropping as clients started asking uncomfortable questions. 3 weeks later, I was having coffee in my kitchen when the breaking news alert popped up on my phone. Meridian Holdings CEO resigns amid federal investigation.
But it wasn't the CEO who resigned. It was Patricia Hawthorne. According to the press release, she was stepping down to focus on personal matters and to avoid any distraction from the company's cooperation with regulatory authorities. I set down my coffee cup and smiled. Patricia had finally learned what I had known all along. Information is the ultimate currency, and patience is the vault that keeps it safe. The SEC settlement was announced 4 months later. Meridian Holdings agreed to pay $85 million in fines and to implement comprehensive compliance reforms. 3 senior executives, including Patricia, were barred from working in the securities industry. The company survived, but barely. As for my reward, the SEC whistleblower program entitled me to a percentage of the settlement. After legal fees and taxes, I received $4.2 million, more money than I'd made in 21 years at Meridian. But the money wasn't really the point. The point was that Patricia had tried to erase 21 years of my professional life with a single meeting. And instead, she'd erased her own career with a single decision. I ran into Marcus at the grocery store last month. He'd found a better job with a security firm that paid more and offered better benefits. His daughter was thriving in college. "Ms. Vance," he said, "I never got to thank you properly. That advice about updating my resume, it saved my life. I got out just before the layoff started." Sometimes the best thing that can happen is being forced to leave a situation that wasn't serving you, I told him. That night, I sat on my new porch, I'd bought a house overlooking Lake Michigan, and thought about justice versus revenge. Revenge is personal, emotional, and often destructive to everyone involved. Justice is systematic, factual, and serves a larger purpose. What I'd done to Patricia wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. I hadn't destroyed her life out of spite or anger. I'd simply ensured that her actions had appropriate consequences. The system worked exactly as it was designed to work, once someone with the right knowledge and the right motivation decided to use it. Patricia thought she was smart, eliminating me before I could cause problems. But she'd forgotten the fundamental rule of working in compliance. The people who know where the bodies are buried are the most dangerous people to betray. In the end, she'd given me the ultimate gift, the freedom to tell the truth without worrying about my paycheck, my career, or my professional relationships. She'd freed me to be exactly who I'd always been, someone who believes that integrity matters, that rules exist for a reason, and that 21 years of loyalty deserves better than a cardboard box and a security escort. The irony is perfect. Patricia tried to eliminate me to protect her secrets, and instead she'd created the one person with both the knowledge and the motivation to expose them. As I've learned over the years, the most effective revenge isn't about destruction, it's about revelation. Sometimes the best thing you can do to someone who's betrayed you is simply to let the world see exactly who they really are. And sometimes, if you're very patient and very careful, you can arrange for them to reveal themselves. If you loved and enjoyed this story, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it. Until our next update, take care.